Withering Rooms is a 2.5D horror RPG game that certainly looks like something you probably have never seen before. And recently, we ended up getting confirmation from both the developers and the publishers, Perp Games and Moonless Formless, that is gonna actually be making its way into consoles later this year. So today, not only did I want to introduce players to what Withering Rooms is actually trying to do and why I find it so fascinating, but also talk about what console players should be expecting when this game is finally ported over to presumably PlayStation, Xbox, and of course the Nintendo Switch. If you have never seen this game before, it's probably taking you a little bit back, because usually games like this end up just being traditional first-person horror games. You don't necessarily expect them to be side-scrolling, much less RPG in nature. Horror games tend to be, either Resident Evil shooter likes or just those other type of horror games where you're just kind of escaping the creatures that are trying to kill you, because the game is built around the idea that you're just simply not powerful enough to be able to take them down. Withering Souls does something a little bit different. It basically gives you plenty of weapons at your disposal, and it treats it like a traditional RPG, with still having that weird horror type vibes, creepy looking monsters, and on top of that, an actual story and development happening throughout the game, which is something that you wouldn't necessarily expect. Now, the game is currently in early access for PC. This is a game that has been on PC, I want to say, since around October or so of 2022, so it has been a while, and finally the developers are starting to consider to bring the game over to consoles, and we now have confirmation that later in 2024 it will be making its way into the aforementioned PlayStation, Xbox, and of course Nintendo Switch. For those who may not necessarily know, you're going to be playing in the Monster House, a once beautiful Victorian mansion that's now rearranging itself each night and is filled with overgrown undead, invisible ghosts, devious witches, and axe-wielding madmen. And if you happen to pick up on just that very simple description, it is straight up a rogue-like game. So not only is it mixing some of those horror ideas, but it's also mixing side-scrolling, it's mixing RPG, and on top of that, you have roguelike at that. And now you have a pretty good understanding why this game certainly appeals to me, because it's not necessarily something that we have seen before. It's trying to do something a little bit more different, and that's usually what catches my eye. They mentioned that as you take on the role of Knight's Gale in this challenging 2.5D RPG that draws plenty of inspiration from roguelikes, Soul-likes, and classic survival horror games. Explore the expansive procedurally generated map that includes all of Monster House and the hedge mazes, different tombs, plenty of caves, churches, and ruins that lie beyond its gates. Create your very own perfect build for finding and crafting a wide variety of weapons, tools, spells, outfits, and magical artifacts. Encounter a cast of strange friends, merchants, and liars, each within their own agenda. Can Nightingale find a way to escape the Monster House, or will she ever become powerful enough to be able to control her powers and be able to escape? So they're setting up a traditional horror type tropey experience with the understanding that the gameplay, forget the story, forget the settings or the surroundings, the gameplay, the minute-to-minute experience is what's going to drive you to do it. And ultimately, this game certainly looks like something that is going to be a lot of fun to be had. And honestly, all of it starts with the roguelike experience, because in typical roguelikes, you're starting over and over again. You're starting a brand new run. As you get more accustomed to the game, you get better use and better understanding as to how weapons will work. We get to see that you can cast spells. We can see that you can use ranged weapons. You can use heavy melee weapons. You can use fast and swift weapons. You can do different stances. A lot of options are going to become available for players as they're able to traverse through the game in a traditional 2.5D typical gameplay, with roguelike, soul-like, and classic horror survival experiences being meshed within. Deep and engaging story combining gothic horror and the 19th century science fiction story. Now, while I don't necessarily want to get into spoilers or anything like that, they don't necessarily mention much in the blog updates regarding what the story is ultimately about, but that is something, of course, you want to experience for yourself. Lastly, they mentioned that a large procedurally generated is ready to be explored. Expect over 200 different rooms and areas with dozens of different biomes continually shifting each and every time you go. You can certainly see some tendencies. If you want to make your way to a specific location, you'll kind of know that that location will be in a different spot than next time you try to run it. They also mentioned that there's going to be 80 different monster types and different bosses as well. Different permutations of those monsters and bosses can also be found on each subsequent run. Over 400 unique outfits, rings, weapons, tools, treasures, and spells can also be found and crafted. So you'll be able to mix and match to your heart's content in traditional roguelike formats, except this time around you're actually mixing and matching both weapons, equipable spells, most presumably passives, relic type items, and plenty more. Lastly, they also mentioned that you're going to have over 30 different NPCs that you can both befriend and or betray. So if, for example, you go to a merchant and you happen to just betray them and take all their stuff, well, you can certainly do that, but I'm sure the game is going to have a counteract option later as you are trying to basically get around the fact that you committed something that probably you shouldn't have done. Lastly, they mentioned that the game features 4 complete separate endings with a brand new robust new game plus mode with new monsters and new bosses available specifically in your new game plus experience. And they also mentioned that they've unlocked a fixed camera mode to play through the game from a classic survival horror perspective, aka Tank Control's original Resident Evil. So you'll be able to have the option to be able to do that as well and kind of clip the camera around in the specific angle in the room if you so desire. With all that said though, at the end of the day, because it is a side scroller, you're not really going to get that full 3D motion camera movement around. You're still going to be dealing with side scrolling stuff, just the camera will be tilted to a very specific angle from the side scrolling nature. All in all though, everything that this game is trying to offer, at the very least at first glance, looks fantastic. Withering Rooms is one of those games that I personally, since I saw the trailer, it caught my eye. I certainly want to be able to get my hands on it once it launches on consoles. Again, it is still early access on PC via Steam, which usually the situation for, at the very least for me, when it comes to early access, it just means that, especially when it comes to PC, there's two differences of early access games. Some of them are just still clearly being worked on, they're not finished. Others are pretty much mostly finished, but they're still adding more stuff like post-launch DLC and stuff. I don't know where this one is landing at this point in time on PC Steam, but presumably once the console version launches, it will be at the very least 1.0 on PC, a full-on playable build with no real issues to be concerned of. If you're brand new to my channel though, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up, and as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.